The sun was setting over the bustling city skyline, casting a warm golden glow over the streets below. Michelle Carter, a successful black CEO in her mid-40s, stepped out of her sleek black car with an air of confidence that turned heads. She had just returned from an exhausting business trip and couldn't wait to relax at her own luxury hotel, a property she had poured her heart, soul, and years of relentless hard work into building. The hotel wasn't just a business for Michelle. It was a symbol of her journey, a testament to her resilience and proof that dreams could be turned into reality with determination. Dressed impeccably in a tailored navy suit, her hair styled to perfection, Michelle exuded authority and grace. As she made her way toward the grand entrance of the hotel, she felt a sense of pride wash over her. Every detail, the polished marble floors, the shimmering chandeliers, the elegant furniture, was a reflection of her vision. This place wasn't just a hotel, it was her legacy. But little did Michelle know, this evening would test not only her patience, but also her resolve in ways she never imagined. As she entered the lobby, the familiar scent of fresh flowers greeted her. Guests milled about, some chatting animatedly while others checked their phones or sipped coffee from the cafe corner. Michelle approached the front desk, where a young receptionist sat tapping away on his keyboard. His name tag read, Jason. Smiling warmly, Michelle leaned forward and said, "Hi, I'd like a room for tonight." Jason barely glanced up from his screen. With a quick tap of his fingers, he replied without much enthusiasm, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we're fully booked tonight." Michelle blinked, taken aback. Fully booked? How could that be? This was her hotel. She owned every inch of it. The plush carpets underfoot, the gleaming countertops, even the crisp uniform Jason wore. Yet here she was, being told there were no rooms available. For a moment, doubt crept into her mind. Had something gone wrong? Was there a major event happening in the city that she hadn't been informed about? "Are you sure?" Michelle asked calmly, leaning slightly forward. Her tone was polite but firm, the kind that usually commanded attention. "Could you double-check?" Jason sighed audibly, clearly annoyed by what he likely perceived as unnecessary persistence. He tapped a few more keys, glanced at his screen again, and shook his head firmly. "No vacancies," he repeated almost dismissively. Then, without another word, he turned his attention to the next guest in line, leaving Michelle standing there dumbfounded. A mix of emotions swirled inside her, humiliation, frustration, disbelief. But Michelle quickly composed herself. She didn't want to cause a scene, especially not in her own hotel. Instead, she stepped aside and observed quietly. Watching Jason interact with other guests, she noticed something unsettling. When a well-dressed white couple approached the desk moments later, Jason greeted them with a bright smile and immediately offered assistance. Within seconds, he had secured them a room despite claiming earlier that the hotel was fully booked. Michelle's jaw tightened as realization dawned on her. It wasn't incompetence or oversight that had led to her being turned away. It was bias. Whether intentional or unconscious, Jason had judged her based on her appearance rather than recognizing her as the owner of the very establishment he worked for. Anger bubbled beneath the surface, but Michelle forced herself to stay calm. She knew losing her temper wouldn't solve anything. Instead, she decided to take a step back and think strategically. This wasn't just about her personal experience. It was indicative of a larger issue within the hotel's culture. If one employee could treat the owner so poorly, what did that say about how other guests were being treated? With a deep breath, Michelle grabbed her phone and sent a text to her assistant. "Cancel my reservation elsewhere. I'll figure out accommodations later." Then, she walked out of the hotel, her mind racing with ideas. By the time she reached her car, she had already begun formulating a plan. What happened tonight wasn't going to go unnoticed. It was going to spark a transformation. Driving away from the hotel, Michelle reflected on her journey. Growing up in a modest household, she had faced countless obstacles along the way. People had doubted her abilities, questioned her ambitions, and underestimated her potential simply because of the color of her skin. But she had always risen above those challenges, refusing to let anyone dictate her worth. Building this hotel had been her ultimate triumph, a declaration to the world that she belonged at the top, and now here she was, facing yet another hurdle. But this time, it wasn't just about her. It was about creating a workplace culture rooted in respect, inclusivity, and fairness. It was about ensuring that no guest, regardless of their race, gender, or socioeconomic status, ever felt unwelcome in her hotel again. By the time Michelle checked into a modest inn down the street, her resolve was stronger than ever. Sitting alone in her small room, she jotted down notes and sketched out a detailed plan. Tomorrow she would return to the hotel, not as a guest, but as its leader, and she would make sure everyone understood the importance of treating each person who walked through those doors with dignity and respect. That night, as Michelle lay awake staring at the ceiling, she thought about the power of perspective. Sometimes life throws unexpected challenges our way, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths. But these moments also present opportunities for growth and change. For Michelle, this incident wasn't just a personal affront. It was a wake-up call. And she was ready to answer it, with courage, determination, and a commitment to making things right. Little did she know, her actions in the days to come would shock everyone involved and leave a lasting impact on the entire organization. The next morning, Michelle woke up early, her mind buzzing with thoughts about the plan she had drafted the night before. She knew this wasn't going to be an easy task, but she also understood that real change required bold action. As she got ready, she intentionally chose a casual outfit, jeans, a simple blouse, and minimal makeup. Her goal was to blend in, to observe her hotel as an ordinary guest might experience it, rather than as the powerful CEO everyone recognized. By 8 a.m., Michelle arrived at the hotel. Instead of heading straight to her office on the top floor, she decided to take a detour through the lobby and other public areas. Her first stop was the cafe near the entrance, where she ordered a cup of coffee and sat at a small table by the window. From there, she could watch employees interacting with guests without drawing attention to herself. What she saw troubled her deeply. While some staff members were courteous and professional, others seemed disengaged, treating customers with indifference unless they appeared wealthy or influential. A young black couple carrying backpacks approached the concierge desk asking for directions to a nearby museum, only to receive a curt response and little effort to help. In contrast, a white businessman in a tailored suit received a warm smile and detailed assistance when he asked for restaurant recommendations. Michelle's heart sank as she noticed these subtle but undeniable biases play out repeatedly. It wasn't just Jason at the front desk who had judged her unfairly. It was part of a broader pattern embedded within the hotel's culture. Employees weren't trained to see beyond appearances. Instead, they made snap judgments based on stereotypes. This realization angered Michelle, but it also strengthened her resolve to address the issue head-on. After finishing her coffee, Michelle wandered around the hotel, taking mental notes of everything she observed. She stopped briefly at the spa reception, pretending to inquire about booking a massage, and chatted with a housekeeper pushing a cart down the hallway. Each interaction gave her more insight into how employees treated guests and each other. Some were genuinely kind and helpful, while others seemed robotic or dismissive. The inconsistency was glaring, and Michelle knew it needed to be fixed immediately. By noon, Michelle called an emergency meeting with her management team. When they gathered in the conference room, expecting routine updates on finances and operations, they were surprised to find their usually composed CEO visibly upset. Without mincing words, Michelle recounted her experience from the previous evening. She described how she'd been turned away at the front desk despite owning the hotel, and how she'd witnessed similar biases during her undercover observations. That morning, gasps filled the room as the executives processed what they were hearing. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats, clearly embarrassed by the revelation. Others tried to justify the behavior, suggesting it might have been a one-off mistake or blaming staffing shortages for poor customer service. But Michelle cut them off sharply. "This isn't just about one employee making a mistake," she said sternly, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "It's about systemic issues within our culture. We've become complacent, forgetting the values this hotel was founded on inclusivity, respect, and excellence. She paused, letting her words sink in. The room fell silent as everyone realized the gravity of the situation. Then, Michelle announced her plan. Starting immediately, all employees, from housekeeping staff to senior management, would undergo mandatory diversity and customer service training. These sessions would focus on recognizing unconscious biases, fostering empathy, and delivering exceptional service to every guest, regardless of their background. But Michelle didn't stop there. To ensure accountability, she revealed that undercover, evaluations would be conducted regularly. Mystery shoppers, people posing as regular guests, would assess how employees interacted with them and report back. And perhaps most shocking of all, Michelle declared that she herself would participate in these evaluations, checking in under different aliases to observe firsthand whether changes were taking hold. Her announcement left the room in stunned silence. No one dared to speak. For many of the executives, this level of personal involvement was unprecedented. They had always seen Michelle as a distant figurehead, delegating tasks and focusing on high-level strategy. But now, she was rolling up her sleeves and stepping directly into the trenches, signaling that this initiative was non-negotiable. Later that afternoon, Michelle met privately with HR to discuss the logistics of implementing her plan. Together, they outlined a comprehensive program that included workshops, role-playing exercises, and open forums for employees to share their experiences and concerns. Michelle emphasized the importance of creating a safe space where workers felt comfortable speaking up about discrimination or unfair treatment they may have encountered themselves. As word spread throughout the hotel about the upcoming changes, reactions varied. Some employees embraced the idea enthusiastically, grateful for the opportunity to learn and grow. Others grumbled, viewing the training as unnecessary or a waste of time. Among them was Jason, the receptionist who had initially turned Michelle away. When his supervisor informed him about the new policies, he rolled his eyes and muttered something about political correctness. But deep down, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that he might have played a role in prompting all this upheaval. Over the following days, posters went up around the hotel reminding staff of the new standards expected of her. Phrases like, "Every guest matters," and "See beyond appearances" adorned break rooms and bulletin boards. Meanwhile, Michelle began conducting her undercover evaluations, checking in under different names and personas. During her first visit, she posed as a budget traveler wearing sneakers and carrying a backpack. When she approached the front desk, she was greeted politely but not warmly, the same lukewarm service she'd experienced before. Undeterred, Michelle continued her secret visits, observing how employees responded to various scenarios. Slowly but surely, progress began to show. One day, she walked into the lobby dressed casually and approached Jason again. This time, however, his demeanor was entirely different. With a genuine smile, he greeted her enthusiastically and offered assistance. "Welcome to our hotel. How may I help you today?" he asked sincerely. Michelle couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Whatever resistance Jason might have initially shown during training, it seemed he had truly embraced the new ethos. Encouraged by this improvement, Michelle decided to push further. She started engaging with employees across all levels, learning more about their challenges and sharing feedback directly. She discovered that many workers appreciated the renewed focus on inclusivity and felt empowered to speak up about areas needing improvement. One evening, Michelle joined a group of housekeepers for dinner in the staff cafeteria. Sitting among them, she listened intently as they shared stories about difficult guests, long hours, and moments of triumph. One housekeeper named Maria spoke passionately about how the recent training had helped her better understand cultural differences and communicate more effectively with international guests. Another worker, Ahmed, admitted that he used to feel invisible in the workplace, but now felt valued thanks to the emphasis on teamwork and mutual respect. These conversations reinforced Michelle's belief that meaningful change required more than just policy updates. It demanded connection, understanding, and trust. By involving employees in the process and leading by example, she was beginning to transform the hotel's culture from the ground up. Weeks turned into months, and the positive effects of Michelle's efforts became increasingly evident. Guests raved about the improved service, praising employees for their warmth and attentiveness. Employee morale soared as well, with many expressing gratitude for the supportive environment Michelle had fostered. Even Jason, once reluctant to embrace the changes, became one of the hotel's most enthusiastic advocates, often mentoring newer staff members on providing excellent customer service. For Michelle, the journey was far from over. There would always be room for growth and improvement. But as she looked around at the thriving hotel she had built, not just physically but culturally, she knew she had taken a crucial step toward creating something truly special. This wasn't just a business anymore. It was a community united by shared values and a commitment to excellence. And as Michelle reflected on everything that had transpired, she realized that sometimes the greatest victories emerge from the most unexpected setbacks. What had started as a humiliating experience had ultimately led to a profound transformation, one that would leave a lasting impact on everyone involved. Months had passed since Michelle Carter implemented her bold plan to overhaul the culture of her hotel. The initial resistance from some employees had softened, and the mandatory diversity and customer service training sessions were now a regular part of the work week. Posters with messages like "Every guest matters" and "Respect is our foundation" adorned every corner of the building, serving as constant reminders of the new standards expected of everyone. But for Michelle, these changes weren't just about ticking boxes or meeting quotas. They were about creating lasting transformation. Michelle threw herself into the process wholeheartedly, participating in undercover evaluations as promised. She checked in under various aliases, sometimes posing as a business traveler, other times as a tourist or even a local resident looking for a staycation. Each visit gave her fresh insights into how employees interacted with guests and whether the lessons from the training sessions were being applied consistently. At first, progress was slow. Some staff members struggled to adapt, reverting to old habits when faced with challenging situations. Others seemed to embrace the changes superficially, putting on a show of politeness without truly internalizing the values behind it. But Michelle was patient. She knew that real change took time, especially when it involved shifting deeply ingrained attitudes and behaviors. And so she continued her secret visits, observing quietly and taking detailed notes after each encounter. Her dedication didn't go unnoticed. Employees began whispering among themselves about the mysterious guest who kept showing up unannounced, always asking thoughtful questions and paying close attention to how things were run. Little did they know, their boss was watching them more closely than ever before. One afternoon, Michelle walked into the lobby dressed casually in jeans and a plain sweater, her hair tied back in a loose ponytail. She carried a small backpack slung over one shoulder, deliberately avoiding anything that might signal wealth or authority. Approaching the front desk, she waited patiently as Jason, the same receptionist who had once turned her away, finished assisting another guest. When it was her turn, he looked up and greeted her warmly. "Good afternoon. How can I assist you today?" Jason asked with a friendly smile, his tone genuinely welcoming. It was a stark contrast to the dismissive attitude he'd shown months earlier. Michelle smiled back, pretending to be a first-time visitor. "Hi, I'm thinking of booking a room here," she said casually. "Can you tell me what options are available?" Jason nodded enthusiastically and began explaining the different room types, highlighting amenities like complimentary breakfast, free Wi-Fi, and access to the rooftop pool. His demeanor was attentive and professional, exactly what Michelle had hoped to see. As he handed her a brochure, he added, "If you decide to book, we also offer a loyalty program that gives you discounts on future stays." Michelle couldn't help but feel proud. Whatever resistance Jason might have initially, shown during the training sessions, it seemed he had truly embraced the new ethos of inclusivity and respect. Encouraged by this improvement, Michelle decided to push further. She thanked him politely and wandered around the hotel, engaging with other employees along the way. At the concierge desk, she struck up a conversation with a young woman named Priya, who eagerly provided recommendations for local attractions. In the cafe, a barista named Marcus remembered her order from a previous visit, and greeted her by name. Even the housekeeping staff, often overlooked in guest interactions, went out of their way to acknowledge her presence with a smile and a polite, "Good afternoon." Each positive interaction reinforced Michelle's belief that the hotel was heading in the right direction. But she also knew there was still work to be done. For every success story, there were moments of inconsistency, times when an employee slipped back into old patterns or failed to fully grasp the importance of treating every guest equally. These incidents reminded Michelle that transformation wasn't a linear process. It required constant vigilance and reinforcement. To address these lingering challenges, Michelle introduced a series of open forums where employees could voice their thoughts and concerns. These sessions were held monthly in the hotel's conference room, with snacks and refreshments provided to create a relaxed atmosphere. Michelle made it clear that no topic was off limits and encouraged honest feedback, whether positive or critical. During one such forum, a housekeeper named Maria stood up hesitantly, clutching a notepad in her hands. "I just want to say thank you," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "Before all this started, I felt invisible. Not just to guests, but to my own coworkers too. Like if I didn't speak perfect English or didn't dress fancy, people didn't take me seriously. But now I feel like I belong here. People actually listen to me." Her words brought tears to several eyes in the room, including Michelle's. Another employee, Ahmed, chimed in, sharing how the training had helped him better understand cultural differences and communicate more effectively with international guests. "I used to get frustrated when someone didn't speak English well," he admitted. "But now I realize it's not about language, it's about connection. We're all human and we all deserve respect." These heartfelt testimonials reminded Michelle why she had embarked on this journey in the first place. It wasn't just about improving customer service or boosting profits. It was about fostering a sense of belonging and dignity for everyone who walked through the hotel's doors, whether as a guest or an employee. As the weeks turned into months, Michelle noticed subtle but significant shifts in the hotel's atmosphere. Employees seemed happier, more engaged, and more willing to collaborate. Guests frequently left glowing reviews, praising not only the luxurious amenities, but also the warmth and attentiveness of the staff. Word spread quickly, both online and offline, about the hotel's commitment to inclusivity and excellence. One evening, Michelle attended a team dinner at a nearby restaurant to celebrate the hotel's recent achievements. Sitting among her employees, she listened as they shared stories of personal growth and professional triumphs. Jason, who had once dismissed her request for a room, raised his glass and said, "To Michelle, for teaching us that respect isn't just a policy, it's a way of life." The room erupted in applause, and Michelle felt a lump rise in her throat. She had never sought recognition or praise for her efforts, but hearing those words filled her with a profound sense of fulfillment. This wasn't just her victory. It belonged to everyone who had worked tirelessly to make the hotel a better place. Despite the progress, Michelle remained vigilant. She understood that maintaining a culture of inclusivity required ongoing effort. To ensure accountability, she established a peer review system where employees could anonymously rate each other's performance in areas like teamwork, empathy, and customer service. Those who excelled were recognized publicly, while those who struggled received additional coaching and support. Michelle also made it a point to lead by example. Whether she was greeting guests in the lobby, helping clean up after a busy event, or simply thanking an employee for a job well done, she demonstrated the values she wanted to instill in others. Her humility and hands-on approach earned her the respect and admiration of her team, bridging the gap between leadership and frontline staff. By the end of the year, the hotel had undergone a remarkable transformation, not just in its policies and procedures, but in its very soul. What had once been a place defined by luxury alone was now celebrated for its humanity. Guests described it as a home away from home, where they felt seen, valued, and cared for. Employees spoke proudly of working for a company that prioritized fairness and kindness above all else. For Michelle, this journey had been both challenging and rewarding. It had tested her patience, pushed her boundaries, and forced her to confront uncomfortable truths about bias and privilege. But it had also reaffirmed her belief in the power of leadership to drive meaningful change. By choosing to address the issue head-on rather than brushing it aside, she had turned a humiliating experience into a catalyst for growth, not just for herself, but for everyone involved. As she stood on the balcony of her office one evening, gazing out at the glittering city skyline, Michelle allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. The road ahead would undoubtedly present new challenges, but she was ready. After all, she had learned something invaluable through this experience. True success isn't measured by titles or accolades. It's measured by the impact we have on others. And for Michelle Carter, that impact was undeniable. Months had passed since Michelle Carter's bold efforts to transform her hotel began to bear fruit. The once stagnant culture of indifference and bias had been replaced by a vibrant atmosphere of inclusivity, respect, and genuine care. Guests raved about their experiences online, leaving glowing reviews that highlighted not only the hotel's luxurious amenities, but also the exceptional service they received. Employees, too, felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing they were part of an organization that valued them as individuals rather than mere cogs in a machine. But for Michelle, the journey was far from over. She knew that maintaining momentum required constant vigilance and innovation. One evening, as she sat in her office reviewing feedback reports, an idea struck her, a way to take the hotel's commitment to excellence one step further. What if she could turn this newfound reputation into something bigger? Something that would inspire not just her team, but the entire hospitality industry? The next morning, Michelle called another meeting with her management team. When they gathered around the conference table, she wasted no time getting to the point. "We've come a long way," she began, her voice steady yet passionate. "But I believe we can do more. Our guests love what we're doing, and our employees are thriving. Now it's time to share our story with the world." Her announcement caught everyone off guard. Share their story? How exactly did she plan to do that? Sensing their confusion, Michelle elaborated. "I want us to host a national hospitality summit right here at the hotel. We'll invite leaders from across the industry, hotel owners, managers, trainers, to learn from our experience. Let's show them how prioritizing diversity, empathy, and customer service isn't just good ethics, it's good business." The room buzzed with excitement as the executives absorbed her proposal. Some were skeptical, wondering if the hotel was ready for such a high-profile event. Others immediately jumped on board, eager to showcase their hard work to a wider audience. By the end of the meeting, the decision was unanimous. They would move forward with the summit. Planning the event was no small feat. Michelle assembled a dedicated team to handle logistics, marketing, and outreach. They worked tirelessly to create a program that balanced inspiring keynote speeches, interactive workshops, and networking opportunities. The theme of the summit was simple yet powerful. Leading with heart, transforming hospitality through inclusivity. To ensure authenticity, Michelle insisted that employees play a central role in the event. Housekeepers, receptionists, concierges, all levels of staff were invited to participate in panel discussions and breakout sessions. Their stories, she believed, were the heart of the hotel's transformation and would resonate deeply with attendees. As word spread about the upcoming summit, interest poured in from across the country. Industry leaders who had initially dismissed Michelle's approach as idealistic now clamored for tickets. Journalists requested interviews, eager to hear more about the CEO who had turned a personal setback into a catalyst for change. Social media buzzed with anticipation, with hashtags like "Lead with Heart" trending weeks before the event. On the day of the summit, the hotel buzzed with energy. Hundreds of guests filled the grand ballroom, where rows of chairs faced a stage, adorned with the hotel's logo and the summit's theme. Michelle stood backstage, taking deep breaths to calm her nerves. This wasn't just another speech. It was her chance to inspire others to follow in her footsteps. When she stepped onto the stage, the crowd erupted into applause. Dressed in a sleek black suit, her presence commanded attention. As she approached the podium, She smiled warmly and began to speak. When I started this journey, she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion, I never imagined where it would lead me. Being refused a room at my own hotel taught me something invaluable, that success isn't measured by wealth or titles, but by the impact we have on others. She went on to recount her experience in vivid detail, describing the humiliation of being turned away and the realization that it reflected deeper systemic issues within her organization. Her vulnerability struck a chord with the audience, many of whom nodded in understanding. Then she explained the steps she had taken to address those issues, the mandatory training, undercover evaluations, open forums, and the profound impact they had on both employees and guests. Transformation doesn't happen overnight, Michelle continued. It requires courage, persistence, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. But when you commit to leading with heart, the results are worth every challenge. Her words resonated deeply, earning standing ovations and heartfelt praise from peers. As she concluded her speech, she issued a call to action. Let's make inclusivity and empathy the standard, not the exception in our industry. Together, we can redefine what it means to provide exceptional service. The rest of the summit unfolded seamlessly. Employees shared their personal stories during panel discussions, highlighting how the changes had empowered them to grow professionally and personally. Guests participated in interactive workshops designed to teach practical strategies for fostering inclusivity in their own organizations. Networking sessions allowed attendees to exchange ideas and form connections that would last long after the event ended. One particularly memorable moment came during a Q&A session when Maria, the housekeeper who had once felt invisible, stood up to address the audience. Holding the microphone with trembling hands, she spoke candidly about her journey. Before all this, I thought my job was just cleaning rooms, she said, her voice breaking slightly. But now I know I'm part of something bigger. I matter. And so does everyone else. Her words brought tears to many eyes, including Michelle's. It was a testament to how far they had come, and a reminder of why this work mattered so much. By the end of the summit, attendees left inspired and equipped with actionable insights. Many pledged to implement similar initiatives in their own businesses, vowing to prioritize inclusivity and empathy in everything they did. Journalists wrote glowing articles about the event, praising Michelle's leadership and the hotel's groundbreaking approach to hospitality. Social media lit up with discussions about her vision and the lessons her experience offered. Back at the hotel, employees gathered in the lounge to watch recordings of the summit. Tears welled up in some eyes as they listened to Michelle's speech and relived the transformative journey they had been part of. Even Jason, the receptionist who had once dismissed Michelle's request for a room, clapped enthusiastically, knowing how far he and the entire team had come. In the weeks that followed, the hotel became a beacon of excellence, celebrated not just for its luxurious amenities but for its unwavering commitment to equality and kindness. Guests raved about the impeccable service, while employees spoke passionately about the positive work environment. Word spread beyond the hospitality industry, inspiring other businesses to adopt similar practices. For Michelle, the summit marked a turning point, not just for her hotel, but for her career. Invitations poured in from conferences, universities, and corporate events, all eager to hear her speak about leadership, resilience, and the power of empathy. She embraced these opportunities, using her platform to advocate for systemic change in workplaces everywhere. But despite her growing fame, Michelle remained grounded. She continued to visit the hotel regularly, often stopping to chat with employees or greet guests in the lobby. Her humility and hands-on approach endeared her even more to her team, reinforcing the values she had fought so hard to instill. One evening, as Michelle stood on the balcony of her office overlooking the city, she reflected on everything that had transpired. From the humiliating night she was refused a room to the triumphant summit that had captivated an entire industry, her journey had been nothing short of extraordinary. It had tested her patience, pushed her boundaries, and forced her to confront uncomfortable truths, but it had also reaffirmed her belief in the power of leadership to drive meaningful change. As she gazed out at the glittering skyline, Michelle allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. The road ahead would undoubtedly present new challenges, but she was ready. After all, she had learned something invaluable through this experience. True success isn't measured by accolades or titles. It's measured by the lives you touch along the way. And for Michelle Carter, those lives numbered in the hundreds, employees who felt valued, guests who felt seen, and an entire industry inspired to do better. Her legacy wasn't just a hotel, it was a movement rooted in heart, humanity, and hope. Months after the National Hospitality Summit, Michelle Carter's hotel had become more than just a luxury establishment. It was a symbol of transformation. The ripple effects of her bold actions and leadership extended far beyond the walls of the building, inspiring not only her team but also countless others in the hospitality industry and beyond. Her story had sparked conversations about inclusivity, empathy, and the importance of leading with heart. The media attention following the summit was overwhelming, yet gratifying. Articles praising Michelle's vision appeared in major publications, while television shows invited her to share her insights on leadership and workplace culture. Social media platforms buzzed with hashtags like Dear Lead with Heart and Dear Inclusive Hospitality, as people around the world discussed how they could apply these principles in their own lives and careers. For Michelle, this newfound visibility wasn't about personal glory. It was an opportunity to amplify her message and create lasting change. Despite her growing fame, Michelle remained deeply connected to her roots. She continued to spend time at the hotel, often walking through its halls unnoticed by guests who didn't recognize her without her tailored suits or polished demeanor. On some days, she would sit in the cafe, sipping coffee and listening to employees chat about their weekends. Other times, she'd join housekeeping staff during their morning briefings, offering words of encouragement and reminding them of the critical role they played in making the hotel special. These moments grounded her, reinforcing why she had embarked on this journey in the first place. One day, as Michelle strolled through the lobby, she noticed a familiar face standing near the concierge desk. It was Jason, the receptionist who had once turned her away. He was now assisting a guest, a young black woman dressed casually, with warmth and professionalism. As Michelle watched from a distance, Jason handed the woman a brochure and offered suggestions for local attractions. His tone was friendly, his body language open and inviting. Michelle smiled to herself, feeling a surge of pride. This young man, who had once dismissed her based on assumptions, had grown into someone who embodied the values she had worked so hard to instill. Later that afternoon, Michelle approached him during his break. "Hey, Jason," she said casually. "I just wanted to say how impressed I am with your work lately. You've really stepped up." Jason looked surprised but pleased. "Thank you, Ms. Carter," he replied, his voice tinged with gratitude. "Honestly, I never thought I'd be where I am today. But everything we've learned, it's changed me. Not just at work, but in life too." His words resonated deeply with Michelle. This wasn't just about improving customer service. It was about helping people grow, both personally and professionally. Every interaction mattered, not just between employees and guests, but among colleagues as well. By fostering an environment of mutual respect and support, Michelle had created a space where everyone felt valued and empowered to succeed. As the months passed, Michelle began receiving invitations to speak at events outside the hospitality industry. Corporations, nonprofits, and educational institutions sought her expertise on topics ranging from diversity training to effective leadership. At each event, she told her story, the good, the bad, and the transformative. She spoke candidly about the night she was refused a room at her own hotel, emphasizing that the experience had been painful, but ultimately enlightening. "Sometimes," she would say, "our greatest challenges become our greatest teachers." Her speeches struck a chord with audiences, many of whom approached her afterward to express their admiration or ask for advice. One woman, a manager at a tech company, shared how Michelle's story had inspired her to address bias within her own team. Another attendee, a teacher, described implementing similar values in her classroom, teaching students the importance of empathy and inclusion. Each conversation reinforced Michelle's belief that small actions could lead to big changes when done with intention and purpose. Back at the hotel, the positive momentum continued. Employees took ownership of the culture Michelle had helped build, ensuring that new hires understood the values and expectations from day one. Training sessions evolved into collaborative workshops where staff members shared their experiences and brainstormed ways to improve further. Guest satisfaction scores soared, and repeat visitors often commented on how the hotel felt like a second home. But perhaps the most significant indicator of success came from within. Employee turnover rates dropped dramatically, signaling that people were happy and engaged in their roles. Team morale reached an all-time high, with workers frequently expressing pride in being part of such a forward-thinking organization. During monthly meetings, employees openly praised one another, celebrating achievements both big and small. It was clear that the hotel had become more than just a workplace. It was a community united by shared values and a commitment to excellence. One evening, Michelle hosted a celebratory dinner for her team at a nearby restaurant. As plates of food were passed around and laughter filled the air, she stood up to make a toast. Raising her glass, she looked around the room at the faces of those who had made this journey possible. "When I started this business," she began, her voice steady but emotional, "my dream was to create something extraordinary, something that reflected my vision of what hospitality should be. But what I didn't realize back then was that the real magic wouldn't come from marble floors or chandeliers. It would come from you." Tears glistened in several eyes as Michelle continued. "Each of you has played a vital role in transforming this hotel into what it is today. You've shown courage, resilience, and kindness. You've proven that when we lead with heart, anything is possible." The room erupted in applause, and for a moment, Michelle allowed herself to bask in the collective joy. This wasn't just her triumph. It belonged to everyone who had poured their energy and passion into making the hotel a beacon of hope and inspiration. Later that year, Michelle received an email from an awards committee informing her that she had been nominated for Hotelier of the Year. While flattered, she initially hesitated to accept the nomination, believing that recognition wasn't the goal. However, her team convinced her otherwise, arguing that winning the award would shine a spotlight on the values they had worked so hard to promote. Reluctantly, Michelle agreed to proceed. On the night of the ceremony, Michelle walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. Dressed in a stunning navy gown, she exuded confidence and grace. As she accepted the trophy, she delivered a heartfelt speech that brought tears to many eyes. "This award isn't mine alone," she said, holding the trophy aloft. "It belongs to every employee who wakes up each day determined to make someone's stay unforgettable. It belongs to every guest who has trusted us with their comfort and happiness. And it belongs to anyone who believes in the power of empathy to transform lives." Her words echoed throughout the hall, leaving a lasting impression on everyone present. That night, social media lit up with praise for Michelle and her revolutionary approach to leadership. Colleagues and competitors alike hailed her as a trailblazer, someone who had redefined what it meant to run a successful business. Looking back on her journey, Michelle realized that the incident that had once felt like a personal affront had ultimately led to her greatest accomplishment. Being refused a room at her own hotel had forced her to confront uncomfortable truths about bias, privilege, and systemic inequality. But instead of letting anger consume her, she had channeled it into action. Action that had not only transformed her organization but also inspired countless others to follow suit. For Michelle, true leadership wasn't about wielding power or accumulating wealth. It was about using your position to uplift others, challenge the status quo, and drive meaningful change. And as she stood on the balcony of her office one final time, gazing out at the glittering city skyline, she knew she had done exactly that. Her legacy wasn't just a hotel. It was a movement rooted in heart, humanity, and hope. A movement that reminded the world that no matter where you come from or what challenges you face, you have the power to turn setbacks into stepping stones. Because sometimes the greatest victories emerge from the most unexpected places, and Michelle Carter's story was proof of that.